Hello, folks. Welcome back to Space Hangouts. This week I've got a variety of topics to talk about. And one other person in channel already. Wonderful. Welcome.
Hey, Ali.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, there was somebody asking about if it was going on a minute ago on the other side, so there were.
Okay, hang on.
Yeah.
Say something again. I'm just trying to configure my audio.
Hello. Hello.
Okay, that is going through my speakers, which is not intended.
Well, your tweet just went out, so you
Yep.
probably get some more people here shortly.
Yeah, cool. All right, so I'm gonna. How do I even edit this for myself? I know there's a way. Aha, settings.
Alright, so the test server guys are checking out all these stage 2 sites, and I think the loot table is still messed up for them.
Which sites?
They besieged.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, cool.
But all they're getting is 10 items that we don't know what they're to do with yet, and then the ship skins, which I don't think is going to cause people to go out there and risk being ganked to go out and do them with the type of DPS that they currently have in them. But
Well, the ship skins should be very. The ship skins should be fairly valuable.
it'll be interesting to see what the final thing is, because everybody complains for Aurum what the cost of them would be, but if they're in game,
Right.
the sky's the limit. So it will be interesting to see.
I mean, the sky's the limit, but it's also you've got the whole capitalistic forces at work. If you set the price on your ship skin really, really high, as long as you don't have a literal cartel controlling the price of the ship skins, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, I guess that was the thing. Nobody's going to complain if the price is high, if it comes from inside the game.
Well,
which is
people
the issue
will
before.
always complain that the price is high. To be fair, regarding the pricing of in-game and stuff, hey Schwal, how's it going?
Hey, good. What's up?
Not much. I was just recounting pub crawl stories before I got on the Hangout.
Good times.
I was incredibly sober the entire time, audience.
Congrats.
That was a lie. The pub crawl was actually my last night in Iceland because I had to fly out to go to my sister's graduation, and so that was like my party night where I was hungover on the plane on the way back.
Yeah, before we jump into whatever the topic's going to be for today, two things for your memo list to talk to Bug CCP about. Can we get blueprints on the info screen for the ships they create? So the link is there.
That would be cool. I will pass that on. I obviously cannot promise for CCP.
I know, but that's one of those things that easy change helps everybody.
Sure.
And the ore still doesn't have where you can get it. And this has to change on the industrial side. We'll see in a couple weeks when they change all that with the new branch. You still can't tell where to get the ore. It's hurting the new player experience. That's like the only crink that's left in the industrial tree that nobody knows where to go find. Which it doesn't even say go look in a -2 system to go find this stuff. It's like, okay, so you have to go through the wiki and all that stuff. And yeah, it was bad the other day. I was training a new guy up, and he said, okay, what do we do? Okay, yeah, go to Wikipedia, pull up these 2 spreadsheets, and confirm. You know, it's like...
I mean, that's how... Yeah, that's a good point to bring up, especially when you're looking at people who are deciding whether they should train, Arcanor processing to 4. If you're planning on mining in high-sec and refining ores that happen in high-sec, then probably not. If you're planning on refining ores in null-sec, of course, you should train that baby up. I've got an alt that I'm training for industry right now because I want to do small-scale industry. I've also got a cat that's screwing with my power cables.
And we've got our couple loot rewards for doing these sites now. We got 4 that they've done on the sites. 90K was the first one. 2.7 million. ISK was the second. Third was 900K, and then the fourth site was 2.7 million. So it's bouncing around. They've got the same name for different sites currently.
Right.
And I'm not sure if that's the final version of that. But
probably not. I mean, it's the test server, so
yeah.
There's a lot of sort of like it's halfway in. Hey, Seamus, how's it going?
We're on the second TQ build though, and normally on second TQ build, 4 days or 3 days now before going live on TQ, a lot of that stuff is static.
Sure.
So.
But the names are kind of an easy thing to switch around.
True.
But yeah, that's good to hear. I assume you've posted at least some of the stuff on the forum.
We're just currently live. I'm going to bug the person who's actually doing the work to go start up a thread somewhere. But
all right.
Yeah,
great.
we just hanging out in the test server on mass testing and singularity channels and seeing what people are doing. And
yep.
Yeah.
I need to get on there. I need to get on there to give a go at the Mortis sites.
They're really spread out though. Still.
Yeah. But I mean,
Black Rise was what she was. They found a couple stacked up together.
I mean, they're supposed to be reasonably rare sites, right? You don't want, like, if this is in every single low-sec system, then it kind of, like, part of the point of these changes is to add more value into getting out in space and doing things in low-sec to make low-sec a more lucrative place to live. Because, of course, obviously in null-sec you have access to all the null-sec buffs, in high-sec you have access to all the safety. In low-sec you kind of get dicked both ways. But that going away is pretty good. Speaking of getting dicked both ways, I assume everyone on this Hangout has seen the freighter and jump freighter changes.
Yep. What it actually means and what people are actually going to do with them are completely up in the air, though.
Well, I think people are going to do, more interesting things than they could have done with the rigs. It fixes a lot of the issues that were coming up.
They're definitely not static now, that's for sure.
So I have a kind of sort of topic change question for Seamus. Did you see my tweet about what if we flattened attributes and removed remaps?
I have not seen that tweet.
The chat string after that was completely hilarious.
It was an interesting chat. So the basis of the idea is remaps considered harmful. Remove remaps from the game. Flatten all attributes so that you get the same effect as if you had remapped. So you've got, 90, 100% of the training speed that you would get if you're on an optimal map. But leave attributes in the game. So you can still, tweak your training time with implants if you want to. I'm curious what you, as an EVE Uni director...
I'm not a director. Let me correct you right there.
All right.
I'm not even a manager. I'm not even an assistant manager.
Okay.
My title... So yeah, my title is professor, and I answer to Director Neville Smith and the teaching managers Titus Talang and Kavena.
Okay, I stand corrected, but as a longtime EVE Uni member who has seen a lot of new players going through your program, how do you feel about remaps? How do you talk to new players about remaps?
Usually what I tell new players about remaps is that they don't want to... Actually, hold on. Is this the microphone I'm using?
No. You can change it with the little gear knob up top. I just found out about this.
Okay. Can you hear me clearly, first of all?
Yes.
Okay.
I can hear you perfectly clearly.
All right, good. So usually what I tell new players about remaps is don't touch your remaps until you actually have a solid skill plan that's going to go for the next year. Otherwise, until then, just train a little bit of this, a little bit of that, some of your armor skills, some shield skills, some of the spaceship command skills, weapon skills, so on and so forth.
Right.
But don't actually use one of those remaps until you have a solid plan for it, because you don't get another yearly remap until you've celebrated a real birthday.
Right.
So that's usually what I tell new players about remaps.
Okay. Cool. Good to know. Good to know. I guess you're a more veteran player. How do you feel about them personally in the game?
Generally, what I've been doing recently is just training skills that are that are either optimal or close to what I'm currently mapped for.
Sure.
Currently, I think I'm mapped for intelligence perception because I decided I'd clean up the entire navigation category all in one go. Now that's done, and now I've got another 3 months before I use a yearly remap again. I've got 3 bonus remaps available, so I could use one of those right now, but I figure 3 months, might as well be patient.
That makes sense, yeah. What about, I guess, Schwa, how do you feel about them? I see you around for the Twitter feed.
Yeah, nobody really told me about remaps when I started. I started playing maybe 3 years ago, and I quickly burned through my bonus remaps in the first few months.
Sure.
And been regretting that ever since, and I'm sure that's a common thing for players that started around when I did.
Right.
So for the last year and a half, I've been, just doing training in one, with one remap and going through like all my gunnery and spaceship command stuff. But I don't know. I kind of think that a year is a bit harsh for remaps, and I think lowering remaps to 3 to 6 months probably, I don't know, is better, not just for veterans or those in between, but new players as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know that. Yeah, I don't know that getting rid of attributes and remaps entirely is necessarily something that needs to be done, but making it less painful, I don't think is a bad thing. Yes. And it's not dumbing the game down. That's one thing that people talk about is we don't want to dumb the game down. It's hard by design, and that's good. But you don't want to make it unnecessarily painful.
Yeah, 1 year is kind of long. I mean, consider that a real human lifespan on average is about 72 years or so. So yeah, 1 year is a lot.
I know a special one that's linked to the Cerebral Accelerator or something like that allows you to reverse changes or reset to 0 after like a month, maybe 2 months. That's one time only. Would be a good answer, but who knows?
I mean, maybe there's really not such a thing as wasted skill points, though. Like, you can have skill points that aren't as useful, I guess, but if you're a PvPer, all the ship skills that you train will be useful.
Defender missiles.
Yeah, I guess, but does anyone here have defender missiles to 5?
My friend does.
Oh, I feel so sorry.
He has all his missile skills to 5, and he's beating himself up for it.
Did he know what they were at the time?
No.
Okay.
But they'll be useful someday, and he's going to be ahead of the curve.
I mean, yeah, if they ever are useful.
Well, I suppose anybody that took the time to go through the grind of training all their refining skills to 5 is now ahead of the curve.
Yep. I've got a couple of those, at least fairly high up. I was just talking a little bit earlier about how I want to do a temporary, basically, intro to, I'm being, cat just went away. I want to do a little, industry on the side in nullsec once the Krios changes drop. Although it's kind of funny because I want the Krios changes to have happened so that I can figure out the skills that I need to do industry. Because I'm looking forward to some of the better interface stuff. But just had a new person drop in. Hey, how's it going? Say hi, introduce yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. It's Brenda.
Oh, hey, Brenda. How's it going?
Yeah, like, okay. I'm disappointed right now, but I'll get over it.
Is this about how wormhole space is not actually the Summer War?
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. So what is the status of that whole war?
For the next 24 hours, everybody's kind of pulling back from all the evictions, and I guess there's basically we agreed with the Russians that they won't evict any VVP entities, and we won't evict them.
Sure.
And yeah, I guess they try to bat phone every Russian and Eve, and everybody told them to fuck off. Can I curse on here?
Who here?
Can I curse on here?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay. So yeah, everybody told them to shove it, and I don't know. Now we're kind of just regrouping. A lot of people are upset because nobody consulted them. Like, the leadership of my corp is they didn't even know this was going down. We kind of woke up and everybody's like, yeah, we're leaving now.
Yeah, and if you were looking to have a bunch of fun, that's kind of unfortunate. Oh well. So how do you? I guess before I drag up some other topic, we've got like 5 different things that we could talk about today. How? I don't know if you saw me tweeting about like, well, what if we remove remaps or whatever. But how do you feel about remaps and attributes in Eve?
That's a tough one. I don't know. I'm okay with it, I guess.
Sure.
You've had years to become okay with it after all.
Yeah. The only thing I suppose SP-wise, the only thing I'm not okay with is the penalty for losing a T3, but
yeah.
Well, I have to deal with it, I guess. I'd like it to be removed. It doesn't incentivize anything.
Right.
I'd love to see the stats of how many people actually use it.
Or T3s?
Strategic cruisers?
No, remaps.
Oh, I do it every time it's available. Well, once I plan them out.
Sure. Alright, well, cool. I guess here's the T3 question, sort of on a random tangent from that. I've heard people complaining about the skill penalty. I've heard people, of course, obviously at some point T3s are going to be on the balancing block. Do you see the skill penalty for T3s as a balance question for them? Like, could you see a world where, like, oh, well, T3s get nerfed, but the skill penalty goes away? Would that be a good world or a bad world? This is just me trying to understand.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard the argument of, losing skill points when you lose T3 is like a balancing factor, but in reality it doesn't really change that much because the training times are fairly short.
Sure.
And it becomes more of an inconvenience than anything else. Like I've been flying a Proteus with navigation to 4 for a while.
Right.
So if I lose, if it's not engineering or offensive or defense, I might take a week before I actually get to retrain it, but
sure,
it's really more of an inconvenience than a penalty. So I don't know if they should use that as a balancing tool as far as D3s go. And I don't think
if you linked it to how many extra modules you're carrying, I think that'd work.
What do you mean by how many extra modules you're carrying?
Well, once they balance the T3s, and you can now refit out of mobile deployable unit. So you're going to carry
refit out of a mobile deployable unit. They've already done that.
Yeah, they can, and that's the thing. Now that you can jump into a hostile space, switch out for DPS or a raid, carry your units with you, do your raid, come back, switch back to stealth mode to get out of low sec, and then go back out. And if you're carrying 2, and those 2 get destroyed, that's the link of having the ability to switch those out.
I see what you're saying.
So it's linked to your actions. It's not linked to just a generic thing like it is now.
Honestly, T3s aren't all in a... I don't think T3s are in a bad place. I think some of the subsystems are. Like, for example, I think that the classic Blaster Tengu, while it has its places, it's generally not very useful. There are some
Be
variations.
advised, I think we just lost our hostess.
Yep.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh.
She may have had to disconnect or something.
Hmm.
There we go.
Yeah.
There she's
Just that the plugin crashed for some random reason. I'm trying to re-up my skill queues.
I am not
stealthily.
accepting responsibility for this.
Nobody asked you to. But yeah,
Welcome, Tyrant. How's it going?
Hey guys, what's up?
Hey, Tyrant.
Hey.
Yeah, as I was saying, I think they should be looking more at the less used subsystems than the current working variations. Like the classic Proteus, which is a very strong ship when you fit it for DPS. It's a high tank, high DPS ship. And I think it's in a good place for the prices that you have to pay for it.
Sure. That makes sense.
Yeah, but there's the Logi, for example, variations, or some of the Evor variations that different races have. Those have some issues, and the only Evor variation Tech 3s that you see these days are Jamgoos that are armor fit, for obvious reasons. But
Right.
yeah, so I think when they do get to rebalancing T3s, I don't think they should touch a lot of the things, but there's a couple of... It's mostly the unused subsystems and probably the cloaky variations of the Legion Tengu and Legion Tengu,
Loki.
Tengu Legion and Loki.
Yeah, everything that's not a Proteus, because if you're a Proteus, you're good.
Yeah, the Proteus is in a pretty good place in those two roles, but there's still other subsystems on it that aren't really used well.
What's wrong with the Legion one? Because I've been using the Legion one and been pretty satisfied with it.
Well, the Legion doesn't suffer as much as, for example, the Cloaky Loki, but they don't have the damage to be actually used as hunters. And if you take a Cloaky Proteus to W space or anywhere really, you can sneak up on your enemy and do really good damage while maintaining a decent tank and actually being a good ship when you want to upgrade from a recon or a stealth bomber to something a little bit heavier and a little more damage and still be able to cloak and probe and stuff like that. The Loki would definitely be one of those that is not able to do that. The Tengu as well, and I mean the Legion is decent, but it still lacks in some aspects. So
I've been trying the Loki, which is nice. I tried the Tengu, which is absolute crap for PvP, and now we're using a lot of Legions, and I gotta say, man, it's better than the previous ones. And I can't really say for Proteus because I'm not skilled for Proteus, but the Legion, I'm not. It's not worse than the other ones, at least.
Well,
I'm
yeah,
gonna-
that's what I said.
I'm gonna have to disagree with the suggestion that I've heard a couple of times that the Tengu is crap for PvP. Now maybe it's not good.
We were talking about the Cloaky Tengu, not
the
just
Cloaky
Tengu.
Okay, well, so maybe it's not good for like solo PvP, wormhole style PvP, but it gets used quite heavily in larger fleets. Black Legion uses the rail Tengus to great
again,
effect,
we're
and you've
not
seen
talking about actual like PvP Tengus. We're talking about Cloaky variations. Not
Alright.
in that case. Yeah, I agree. There's fantastic variations of the Tengu in PvP that work really well. I mean,
The Tengu is in a lot of ways. The Tengu is in a lot of ways in a good place with the Tengu is in a lot of ways in a good place with the both PvP and PvE applications, but that's the cloaky variant sure isn't as good. Although I've used it for hot dropping a couple times and it's fine. If your primary cloaky use is just like drop dudes on other dudes.
My son has something to say about the Tengu. Yeah, this is what he thinks.
Aww. So one of the other questions I posted on Twitter, and this one was actually just, I want to say yesterday, was if you're a vet, what mechanics do you find particularly annoying?
Personally, probably the 24-hour jump clone timer. I understand wanting CCP wanting to put a limit on transferring your consciousness from one side of the galaxy to the other to only once every 19 hours, but if I'm switching between clones in the same station, I'd like there to not be a timer.
What price would you say is a good price to pay for that ability?
Honestly, just the same as the regular jump clones. Like if you have two jump clones in the same station, you're implicitly trading off power projection for the ability to swap your clones.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Is it possible currently to have two? You can medical clone, but two jump clones?
I think you can have.
Right.
Oh, yeah, don't.
What I meant was you're docked in station with your jump clone. You can swap into that jump clone that's with you in station without a cooldown.
Sure.
That's what I would like.
Yeah, I don't like that, and I'll tell you why. So let's say you've got a guy, your character you're training, and he's sitting in +5s. Well, the ping goes out, the fleet goes up, you jump in to, a clone that has, cheap implants. So if you die, you're not risking your expensive clone. And then when the fleet's done, you jump back into your +5s, and you're risking nothing. So you don't have any downside to having +5s.
I'm not using a +5s for the duration of the fleet.
Right, and that's the point. You're never going to lose your +5s because anytime you're going to put yourself at risk, you're just going to jump out of them, do your thing, come back and jump in them. So there's no downside to having them.
You do have to be in the same system.
I'm talking about the same station, yes. So if you're clone jumping to outside the station, then go ahead and invoke the 19 to 24-hour cooldown for that.
Right.
But if you're not changing the physical location of your consciousness, I don't want a cooldown. And the very scenario you describe is exactly why I would want to eliminate the cooldown on in-station clone jumping.
Which is why I think it's a bad idea.
Very little.
Sure.
I almost never PvP precisely because of that reason.
It's also you get people who have. This almost swings back to a good argument to removing attributes altogether, because if you remove attributes and you remove attribute implants, although if I can drag Min on here, I know he had some things to say about that. You end up in a situation where, well, it doesn't matter if you have +5s. I mean, if you have a full slave set, that's one thing, but I think not as many people PvP. A slave set is explicitly a PvP set, so you're going to put it at risk at some point. Although typically, in an Archon or an Aeon or some other huge ship like that.
I use slave implants all the time, and I've accepted the risk of when I lose them, I lose them. And in wormholes, I can't jump clone to anywhere, so I kind of accepted that risk, and if I lose 1.8 billion in implants, well, so be it, right? But
but those slaves are helping you survive a lot of encounters that you would have otherwise wouldn't have survived. Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Exactly, yeah. So
it's a risk, but they're providing you an in-combat benefit. So you're making a choice that this is a good enough benefit that I will risk 1.8 billion interstellar credits.
Right. Speaking of, Minna did in fact just show up. So hi, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Minna. I'm Michael in real life, and I see we have another Michael as well as two Mikes in here.
And all of us are mic'd up.
At least the CSM no longer has more Michaels than women on it.
It's now
It's
even.
true.
Right, it's now even.
Well, and I mean, I guess it's technical if you want to argue that Mike is exactly the same thing as Michael. But, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Same name on, driver's licenses or whatever.
Well, maybe. I don't know. For some people it's a name, and for some people it's just the short name.
Fair enough.
Yeah, for me it's not the diminutive, although my driver's license does say Michael. The only person who calls me Michael is my mother or my wife if she's really mad at me.
Sure.
I had an interesting subject that I raised with you, Ali. Was the subject of making money while doing PvP, and not just the bounty stuff, but more of a steady income when you're actively PvPing all the time.
I can tell you that at least Of Sound Mind is making an incredibly steady income right now by having a bunch of sensor-boosted thrashers camping a pipe in Ketch. NC Dot apparently flies incredibly blinged interceptors incredibly badly. Or so I've heard.
That's something, though, that these days that I don't know how long anyone else in the room has played, but that used to be something that was absolutely possible back during the age of Tech 2 cartels and everything. When if you killed someone, their set of guns would sell for 20 million apiece, or their cap rechargers if you ganked it. Yeah. Cap recharger cartel, you gank a mission runner or a ratter with Tech 2 cap rechargers back then, those were 20 million. Tech 2 guns were like 20, 30 million each.
Wow, okay.
Because it was all BPO limited, and a small group of people, or sometimes even just one person, owned all the BPOs for a particular item.
Right.
They just charged whatever the fuck they wanted, either working on their own or colluding with others.
All right. That's effective.
And so, yeah, I mean, it meant, metaphor items were a lot more popular. They sold for a lot more valuable. The metaphor cap rechargers would be like 5 million, but that's still a quarter of the price of the Tech 2 stuff. But it meant that, you absolutely could, if you didn't die a whole lot, make yourself a pretty good income while PvPing. Although the flip side is, to achieve your maximum effectiveness, you yourself would be, a nice a nice catch. I remember flying Vagabonds back then, and between the hull and the mostly Tech 2 fit, and then usually it'd be a faction warp disruptor and a faction micro warp drive. Since another new thing for the youngins was they actually did more than just less cap use back then.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you know that. The whole ship would be like 600, 700, 800 million S or something for a Vagabond. So these days, though, it's all cheap, and unless you kill incredibly blinged interceptors or something, it's hard to make enough money to sustain yourself doing it.
Certainly there's kind of a catch-22 in which not catch-22, bootstrapping problem, where as a new player, you need to make enough money to get this going.
Right.
But
especially if you're making money via PvP.
Right. You're more likely to suck at it. Because PvP is one of those things that, or I guess definitely one of those things in EVE where you don't just instantly become good at it. You start out and then have to,
practice.
Lose your first 100 battles before you actually manage to successfully kill anything. Either that or consistently fly in a blob.
Wherein your money would be reduced.
Right.
I was thinking about, and I don't know how like actual low seckers would receive this, but we have, we've got those tagged for security status rats, which are sort of common, and the best tags sell for actually a pretty penny. And then now we've got the Mortis rats and belts, and the anomalies and everything. We're kind of building towards a theme here that seems like it would be interesting to develop further. And I'm sorry, Ali, you've heard this already since I was talking about it on Skype. But it'd be an interesting theme to develop further, where the nature of individual income available in low sec is that sort of thing where it's rare-ish, high-value things that you come across, and really ideally that you could tackle in a PvP ship or a couple of PvP ships working together. So you're out roaming, alone, or maybe with a couple of friends, and you're a little light on targets or something. So you go, hey, let's skip through the belts, see what we find, and you come across, I don't know, maybe a couple 100 million ISK worth of whatever if you're lucky. And then you move on, and you have a fight, and half an hour later you do this again, and you get 50 million there, and it would add up. The trick is just having enough of it. Based on the spawn rates on test server, at least, I don't think there's enough of it yet. But the trick is having enough of it and having it be something that can be done by a PvP fit ship.
I don't know if
that, a couple of them.
Yeah, I guess Tyrant, does that kind of a mechanic satisfy the thing you're looking for?
I don't know. It's for me. It's pretty hard to give an accurate description of what I'm looking for, because I don't have a problem making money, and if I look back at the two months that we've been actively PvPing, we've made more money PvPing by looting faction stuff than the actual PvE content. And but when you go to low sec or null sec, you don't make that kind of money, because everybody's flying Tech 1, Tech 2 stuff at best.
Right.
And my alliance members are complaining about making money next to their PvP habits, and it's sort of becoming this problem where they spend more money on losing stuff. So I don't know if I could come up with a good system to earn money, but yeah, maybe a more passive system where, hey, if you've reached the goal of, let's say, 100 kills a month, here's this income, or I don't know.
That's such a...
I'm not so sure. I'd be pretty firmly against something like that.
That sounds like a Guild Wars.
And it's achievement-like, and it's like all kinds of things that just aren't really Eve.
Plus, you could exploit that.
Plus, you
can back. Sure, yeah. Like, I'll just shoot my alt 100 times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I actually had this argument, very long argument, of how passive income is completely horrific. And there's a reason why they're starting. I'm not starting.
No, I'm joking.
Okay, now which side were you on? Were you saying passive income is okay, or do you think it's like bad and there should be absolutely no passive income at all?
I think any passive income is bad. Like,
okay, you're wrong, but we can have the argument another time.
Yes, I understand I understand where people are coming from when they say that, but like stuff like PI, I'm totally okay with. It's semi-passive income. You still have to do something to get something out of it.
What qualifies as passive income in your mind then?
Something where you take no risk to gain it.
But there's nothing.
Okay, so would you like to give an actual example, or?
Yeah, they've removed passive income altogether, right? When they removed research.
Like the research, the data cores were, and I have heard the argument of it was you had to do so many missions and then
you didn't have to. You had to grind up the standings to use the agents, but once you had them, the only activity was running around and collecting cores.
That was something I didn't like. I was okay. I'm okay with moon mining because you're putting assets out into space and they are, in danger.
A lot more effort than anyone likes to give credit for, especially these days with siphons.
Yeah. And I'm totally okay with it. I'm okay with moon mining. I'm okay with PI because yes, it's it's semi-passive. You still have to set it up.
It sounds like the type of passive income that you're against is the type of passive income that there's not really a whole lot of it in the game anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just want to make sure that they don't bring anything that is completely passive like that anymore into the game.
Right.
Right now, there's
the closest analogy I can think of is data core farming.
Yeah. Exactly.
Old and current style.
Yeah, but that's not very lucrative anymore just because the data cores have become so devalued.
But that's an entirely different argument.
Yeah. As long as you can't make billions off of doing nothing, I'm okay with it.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, obviously you have a different threshold of what counts as nothing. Because there's a lot of things that people consider to be passive, and I'm air quoting here that you can't see. Income where, by your definition it's not passive. You're doing something, but you're doing a lot less.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot less, obviously, but you have to, as long as you are risking something or it takes you effort, I think it's fair to have in the game, but if at any moment it becomes, no risk, you don't need to put a lot of work into it, then it becomes a problem. I just want people to play this fucking game.
Yeah, I have to agree with Bronya here, is that people are min-maxing so much.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're so worried about ISK per hour, what's the best way to make money, and they spend less time actually engaged in the actual mechanics of the game and the enjoyment of the game.
Well, to be fair here, some people, min-maxing the how much money they're making from whatever they're doing is where they get the enjoyment from in the game.
Yeah, one of the things that
and some people,
like you could see that in trading. Sorry, Seamus, go ahead.
Some people enjoy metagaming more than the actual gaming.
Right.
Yes, true. Yeah.
Some of whom are on this very hangout.
Yeah, but there's metagaming people, and that's actively participating in the democracy or the diplomatic side or the podcasting side. But you also have people, and Bronya knows what I'm talking about here, is people min-max, complain all the fucking time. Sorry. And I really enjoyed listening to Bronya defending the stance on play the game, engage in the mechanics, go out there and discover all the sides of Eve rather than stick to one area of the game and min-max your income.
I mean, I agree with you there. I happen to think that if you do one thing all the time, you're going to get bored, and you're more likely to not get bored if you have some variety in your activity.
And certainly, it seems like the people who I know in EVE who burn out tend to burn out, and they're like, "Oh, EVE isn't fun anymore," and they don't ever try something new.
Yeah, it's because they stick to one thing. Is that's going to burn them out, and they're going to complain about how shitty the game is. Well,
Sure.
Yeah,
go out there and find something and that will reinvigorate you and give you a new sort of energy to enjoy it again.
Even sometimes the same activity but with a different group of people can.
Yeah.
Exactly. If you're not liking what you're doing, change what you're doing.
Yeah.
Real life advice too.
I've been doing wormholes for 2 years and I'm not bored of it because I've changed the group. I just changed the environment a little bit from one corp to another, and I'm enjoying it again. It's just how you utilize the same. Like if you find something that you really enjoy in EVE, just do it. That's what the game is about. But if you're getting bored, just maybe change the viewpoint. You don't have to even change what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone always gives, the high-sec Care Bears running missions as the classic example of, they should just do more stuff. But, you see hardcore PvPers who just do nothing but solo PvP get all burned out and just as bitter. if not more so.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing. I mean, it's repeating a pattern all over again. I mean, it doesn't matter if you PvE or PvP.
I think my bias tends to be I see more bitter high sec, like more bitter solo PvPers than I see bitter high sec missioners or whatever. I think but I'm friends with some of them.
I think the bitter PvP type is like they tend to be just by nature more involved in the community and more visible, and so you hear them more. Whereas the high sec Care Bear who does nothing but runs missions and doesn't interact with anyone just kind of washes out of the game with no one ever noticing that he was there.
So I'm going to sort of go back to the making income from PvP because I just had a great idea that I want Minna to tell me is dumb. But
wow.
Well, this is how it goes on the CSM sometimes. But regarding the whole making income from PvP thing, what if there was salvage that dropped only off of player ships? Sure. And you either you can sell it like you sell blue books, or you can use it as an optional ingredient in manufacturing to say have the mineral costs or something like that.
You can salvage other players' ships.
Well, yeah, player ships, regardless of tech level, actually yield Tech 2 salvage.
Sure, but I mean, something is better than Tech 2 salvage, so you can.
Tech 1 player ship Rex drop Tech 2 salvage?
Pretty sure, yes. I don't know.
Test that on CC.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go get
salvage to know that for sure. But I mean, just to put this in a firm example, if faction items, rather than being bought, if the blueprints for faction items from the LP stores were the only option, you couldn't just buy the module straight up. So you've got that, and you go to the faction store to get the module, but then redo their build requirements from, right now it's like the Tech 1 version of the module, and then like 3 units of some PI item, or a little bit of minerals, or something, and most of the value is from the blueprint. If you instead went and said, okay, we're going to change these, and they take, like capsule goo as an ingredient or something, and so to get this capsule goo, you have to pod players.
Right.
And now you've got
reprocess their corpses.
Yeah. Or the whole why can't players craft implants thing is another avenue for that. If players could craft implants, maybe they could salvage them from corpses, and you'd get fried neural implant, and with enough fried neural implants, you could rebuild a working implant.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it's not out of the question at all to be able to do it. It's just right now it kind of, unless you are in wormholes or are catching blinged and badly piloted insect interceptors, it's kind of hit or miss.
I always saw PvP as a losing ISK venture on all sides, because eventually you're going to lose that ship and the other guy loses the ship.
Well, yeah, sure, but I mean, if you are good enough, if you win your engagements, you pick your engagements well, and
you've learned how to get
on a regular basis, you'd be plus EV, to use the gambling terms.
You could argue that you could do that right now from all the loot. If you're good enough, you can just keep looting your victims.
Well, yeah, sure.
And then
if you are good enough now, you can eventually do it. But you kill someone's a Tech 2 fit vagabond, and if you're lucky, you're going to get like 5 million ISK worth of loot.
I guess there's sort of
you can do it now. It's just not very sustainable.
Like a philosophical question of whether a PvPer should be allowed to be entirely sustainable through PvP, because if you allow that and you make mechanics to support that, then a PvPer could, in theory, just be in predator mode all the time and never really have any of his stuff at risk that isn't PvP fit. Where if you make it so you're not sustainable through PvP alone and you have to go out in PvP or PvE from time to time, maybe you become the prey once in a while.
Well, I mean, by definition, he's putting his stuff at risk because that's what PvP is.
PvP fit or not?
Right, but it's all PvP.
I will grant that sure, but he is willing. Well, yeah, but who fucking cares? I mean, like an Ishtar that you gank up in Declan is still just Tech 2 fit. It's not like it's a bling fit. People use bling fit in PvE, but it's hardly the norm. But I mean, it was what I don't know who everyone is in here. Unfortunately, it was what whoever was saying earlier about get out and get out and enjoy the game with some idea of whatever, enjoy it the way that I think you should or something. But
I think that was Tyron.
I don't remember who. But if PvPing is what they enjoy, why not allow them the possibility to be sustainable from it? I mean, sorry, I continuing the thought. I paused there, but
Can I chip in on the idea of you guys were talking about being able to do PvP in a PvE fit, right? I had to step away
other way
from the
around.
mic.
So there was.
The other way around.
Well,
The
yeah, the
idea
low sec
was-
idea in particular, if the rats were tuned such, or the AI was such that they weren't completely ridiculous but could still put up a good fight, so that it's you fighting another PvP thing, that would be cool.
Okay, yeah, that's an AI thing, right? I mean,
Well, I mean, some of it's an AI thing, and some of it is that the capabilities of the rats themselves are just bad, and so to make rats hard, they have to overtune them.
Well, I can
there's
see
some
a
of both there.
situation where you would have to tune, like if you tuned in rats to you can take them down with a PvP fit, which is inherently as far as damage or tank. Your PvP ships are always going to be a little smaller than the PvE fit because they don't have to worry about any E-War or any of that shit. So, I mean, technically, you'd have to make the rats weaker, and I don't know if... Because then you could just min-max your PvE ship to go around and clear those rats even quicker. So I don't know if that's...
Okay, so a PvE fit in EVE is typically a very focused, sustained tank against one or two damage types. And for all those reasons, it winds up being awful in PvP because you don't have your webs and prop mod and so on and so forth. So your PvP fit ship is omni-tank. You've usually got tackling gear, especially if you're small gang or solo.
May not be
got
only
your
tank
prop
if you're
mod.
running a gimmick fit.
Well, I can't tell you that I can argue with that because, well, at least in W space, you will see Omni tanks all the time.
Yes, you guys. I'm talking about the rest of EVE here.
Well, I understand, but what I'm saying is that you can use that as a base to work off of because
but
these guys are already...
You guys and incursion runners omni tank by necessity.
Sure, but that's just if you did that for the rest of EVE, that's what it would look like.
It would become a necessity. But if you warped into an anomaly and didn't necessarily know what kind of ammo the rats would be shooting, to put it that way, you would have to omni tank. And if maybe you didn't necessarily know if you were going to be fighting a single battleship or 12 frigates, maybe you'd want to bring a warp scrambler to shut down their micro warp drive or a web or something.
So basically, randomize the sites.
I mean I don't know about randomizing the sites. I'm not getting into site design right now. I'm just saying you can create PvP or PvE scenarios where fitting as though you are PvP fit and is beneficial, and tuning the damage output so that maybe you're burst tanking like you do in PvP or buffer tanking, or instead you're flying a vagabond and you'll kite the rats or whatever.
I think CCP is trying to do that with these new sites that are going to be deployed on this coming week. They're got the same name, but they're showing different spawn cycles. So and they're in low sec. So it's going to be interesting to see if what you assume would happen is going to be correct, and that the variety is going to craft the fit that goes after them, or that allows PvP ships to go after them.
Yeah. I don't think mine has to assume anything. He knows.
Well, not really. I was trying to find the spawns myself to test them out. But,
well, I don't know. It just seemed to me like as far as PvP fits, you could always taking PvP fits into PvE situations is already done, but it might not be the best balancing act.
Yeah. I mean, I've done it, and actually the last time I did it, I got completely wrecked by NC Dot, which was frustrating. But the taking PvP pits into PvE is, I mean, it's doable, but it's
it's definitely doable. I think you have to compromise though. I used to do PvP and PvE in the same Drake fit, and it worked quite well. You know, but you know.
But on the other hand, Drakes.
Yeah, Drakes. Yeah, exactly.
Well, honestly though, if you're running a PvE site and somebody comes in, odds are that you will die no matter what kind of fit you have.
Well, see, now this is the thing. I mean, part of what gets me thinking along these lines is I think that part of a solution to, you know, if you consider AFK cloaking to be a problem, or even if not, part of a solution to making things out in Null in particular more interesting would be if you aren't, if you know, getting warped in on is not automatically a death sentence. If you can fight back or hold them off long enough to, you know, have the other people running in their own things in system come into your aid, and they're also all PvP.
That's what I'm wondering about. Like, what kind of a mechanic would you put in that place? Because there's nothing that makes it either overpowered or just doesn't really work. Because usually when somebody gets ganked in a site, it is an automatic death sentence unless somebody screws up on the aggressive side. So it's really, there's nothing much you could do.
Well, yeah, but part of the reason why it's such an automatic death sentence most of the time is you've got this low-power, sustainable tank that's focused on a couple of damage types, and so they come in with a lot of burst damage and shoot through your damage.
In a
wormhole site, yeah.
Wormhole sites, nullsec. I mean, we go out to nullsec all the time. It's always a death sentence, not because they have a lack of tank or anything like that. It's because they just get outnumbered. Or my suggestion for solutions like this was kind of an incursion-based PvE system all over the place. You have to work with other people, and people shot me down on that idea because they. You know, they cut them into my profits, but you were forced to fly with. Profits. Well, whatever. If you had to run with 2-3 other people to do sets and nullsec, they would be inherently safer than the solo guy.
Sure.
And I think that's a mechanic that doesn't involve any mechanics. It's just encourages team play.
Yeah. Now, a couple of things here.
Sorry.
Part of what's difficult there is encouraging team play without just making the most optimal choice, you and your 3 alts.
Well, you and your 3 alts? Or
you and your 3 alts would still probably be safer, but maybe you're just 3 snacks instead of 1. I'm not against, you know, more group content in nullsec. I would love it if there were more group options in nullsec. I am against the idea that group content should be the only option.
Let me ask you. Bronya definitely engaged in some of these discussions on other podcasts and stuff like that, and I always wonder why people complain about getting ganked or the cloaky campers, stuff like that. What is the point of being in a corporation if you're not going to coordinate with your corporation members? Hey guys, we have a mining site. I would really love to get these ABCs. Can we, you know, set up an op where you provide security, we provide the mining, and coordinate and be safe? I never understood.
So let's take this from both sides. Do you, as a PvPer, really want to just camp in a site with your miners and you know, who knows if anything is going to actually come along?
Yes.
You're one of the very few. I have to admit.
Say that, but
that's why I have 0 losses on my kill board. It's because we coordinate everything that we do. I could do it solo; it's no problem for me. But I take a huge risk, and I get mad at myself if I lose a ship and didn't coordinate because I didn't have backup.
Well, Tyrant, to be honest, like as a person that strictly PvPs, I have corp mates who PvE or mine in like the static or something,
Yeah.
We don't provide them protection, but it's just wouldn't be fun for me to sit there and watch them mine while I just do nothing. But I think if it encourages team play, like one or two dudes, it doesn't matter if it's your ults or not. If you just encourage team play, you would see less ganks and more fights.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I mean, two PvE fit ships are still gonna get ganked. They're not just gonna fall over.
Do you remember? So there was a video a couple of like a month ago or something that showed these two Ishtars.
You mean the PvP fit bait Ishtars that were idling in low end sites to bait people into engagements like that?
Yes, you saw that video. Okay,
I didn't see the video. I heard the premise. I don't exactly consider it to be like an accurate representation of anything.
It's not an accurate representation, but you could take that as a kind of like an idea of what it would look like if those Ishtars could run high-end sites. Those guys would have put up a pretty good darn fight. I think.
Well, no, that's exactly my point. Is if you are capable of being PvP fit while you're doing your PvE, like yes, if you get hot dropped on, a bomber comes in and lights a Sino and 6 Black Ops battleships come through, you're probably still dead either way.
Yeah.
But depending on what comes through, depending on what decloaks and tackles you, you are more likely to be able to even not necessarily hold them off yourself, but survive a little bit long enough for backup to come, and that backup doesn't have to be people reshipping, it's other people warping in from their own anomalies because they're also PvP fit. And so it's exactly like you said, instead of ganks you have fights.
Yeah, I think this discussion, where the complaining or the discussion comes from is usually from people who do it alone. I mean, I think that the people who rat and do missions in a system where other people are active as well doing the same thing, those are not the type of people that complain all the time. It's always the people that go out solo and expect safety.
You're probably onto something there. I mean, I know I hear very, very little complaining from goons up in Declan because we have the standing fleet and we have all manner of people roaming around on home defense and everything, and people who show up there get shat on more often than not.
Titan that got tackled a couple of days ago.
Yeah, well, and some people who are very adventurous with their carriers and Titans. I mean, obviously, from my perspective, we're using our space and everyone else is doing it wrong. That doesn't mean that everything couldn't be better. Shit, what was I about to say? I forgot what I was about to say.
Bronya might know this very well, being a PvPer in Wormholes, is that when we, as Wormholers and Hunters, gank PvE runners, and they start complaining, why did you gank me, this wasn't a fair fight, blah blah blah, and my response is always, you're hanging out in the most dangerous space in EVE, and then have the guts to complain about getting ganked. I mean,
actually, that's another point. It gives you more of a chance to have something resembling a fair fight. Which,
I have to say,
I don't know. I mean, speaking for myself, it's probably going to be more interesting than just ganking someone.
Most PvE running fleets in W space are actually PvP capable. So everybody that I'm not sure what goes through the head of those that get ganked in sites, whether it's capital escalations or like Tengu remote web Tengu fleets or any of that. They actually have a fighting chance if they just didn't warp away with their capitals and left 2 or 3 of their capitals just sitting there in siege. You know what I mean? So it's.
I hear that from wormhole pilots a lot. We get along just fine. What's your problem? But you do have that Omni tank, which is probably the biggest component of a good PvP fit. You often are working with like remote reps and stuff. This is all stuff like Tyrant is getting at. But a capital escalation group, even if it's got those nasty sleeper NPCs on it as well, is far more capable of handling itself, or at least of putting up a fight, than whatever in nullsec.
It's a combination of having more than just yourself in the site. It's a combination of the sleepers doing omni damage. It's a combination of the fact that side running fleet is very similar in composition to a dread blapping fleet.
Yeah,
you are Argon and Loki's.
Yeah, by the nature of the site, you are obliged to fit somewhat closer to, a PvP fit, and therefore
It just so
may or may
happens.
not be able to put up a fight when attacked.
Yeah.
And I mean, Tyrant, I'm not opposed to group content in nullsec. as I was saying, I would love more of that. I don't want people to be forced to do it. Like if the optimal ISK per hour came from grouping up with people, you can make 80 million alone or 100 million if you team up with 2 or 3 friends, so that there's an incentive to do so, but not a requirement to do so. Great.
Yeah.
Well, then you just receive the inherent risk of you're gonna make, you might get ganked, but and you chose not to participate with other players.
Yeah, but it's also
that's
something
the
that
risk.
you can hop on, and I mean, the great thing about anomalies is you can hop on and you can go spend 20 minutes running one of them. If you've only got a little bit of time in the evening.
Sure,
You
but that doesn't.
don't need to find people, and you don't need to coordinate anything and spend all your time just getting set up.
Well, I mean, that's fair, but honestly, I guess it's a trade-off. You could say, like, if you don't want to play with other players, which is honestly is a play with other people game. If you don't want to do that, then you can do it, but it's not going to be as profitable, and it's not going to be as safe.
Well, yeah, this is what I'm saying. Yes, it's a multiplayer game, and yes, you may well be in a if you're out in nullsec, you are probably in a corporation, but not everyone's going to have the time to come on and say, let's get together for a couple hours and run sites. And I don't think that those people should be, just neglected.
And there are plenty of people.
I'm not saying they shouldn't. You can still leave, you can still leave activities that you can do alone. A good example would be exploration sites. Those all you could do alone. So.
Well, exploration sites are very like, one of the nice things about nullsec anomalies is they exist. Like, one of the few nice things about nullsec anomalies is they exist is you're guaranteed to have a site in system, and in nullsec, in soft nullsec, that's more than one site in system, and you can just undock, warp to the Forsaken hub, run the Forsaken hub, warp back to station, dock up, log off. And maybe you're going to get some content in the middle of that. Maybe you're going to get a fight. Maybe there's a standing fleet. You join it. It turns into yanking nerds and insta-thrashers or what have you. But exploration sites are a lot more spiky, and not only that, but they pretty much show up, and they're better than the anomalies, so everyone goes and runs them, and then they're gone again. So you don't log on.
Yeah,
By being there, I mean, the idea with anomalies really is that they provide a baseline level of, this is how many players a system can support.
Yeah,
I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks that it would be great if a single system in nullsec could support more players, so that you'd need less space for more players to be able to rat in.
I mean, I guess it comes back to the whole. Well, how much are you willing to play of the other aspect? How much are you willing to make money over just doing whatever you want? Because at this point, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but doing nullsec sites is great. But if you feel like you are not up for it, you need to find a different income source.
Yep.
Yeah, it's like we were saying earlier. Some people like, PvP is what they want, and so if they could make money from PvP, they'd do nothing but PvP, and they just rat because they have to. Or, I mean, a lot of non-industrialists, a lot of PvPers turn to semi-passive sources like industry or whatever on the side to pay their bills with a minimum of involvement so that they can PvP all the time. But some people just like to, I mean, we make like 100+ billion a month in ratting taxes. That's a lot of people who just like to PvE for the sake of PvEing. It's weird and I don't get it, but they're contributing to the corp, so I don't give a shit.
So I guess with the PvP thing, here's a question that would absolutely be a CCP question, not a us question. But I'm curious whether it's better. I'm curious whether, if you have PvPers that are quote-unquote forced to PvE for their income, do they find themselves doing more things and having fun, like we discussed earlier, or do they find themselves hating the game more
No,
because they
I
can't
think
just do their
That probably
diversity is
depends on the
definitely
person.
better.
Nobody
Yeah,
gets forced.
Schwal, what did you say?
I think that probably depends on the person. I mean, I know personally I do a reasonable amount of PvP, but I would get bored if I was doing one thing all the time. So I've got high sec alts, I've got wormhole alts, I have a C5 I run. You know, I'm sort of all over the place just because the idea of doing the same thing, even if it was just PvP, seems so like fucking mind-numbingly boring that I wouldn't be able to handle the game if that was, you know, my only thing.
Yeah,
Sure.
well, and I mean, there's another upside to the whole, you know, if you could PvE in a PvP fit thing. I don't think it's a requirement, but one of the things that would be very helpful there is, yes, if the rat AI were far more capable and were better able to at least simulate, you know, a PvP fit ship PvPing, it might be a lot more fun if you know, hey, I'm going to take my kiting ship and I'll go, while I'm PvEing, I can also practice my kiting skills so that I don't get tackled by the cyclone.
Hey, wait a minute.
Anyway, I remember what I was going to say earlier. The other thing is you hear a lot of complaints. One of the things, to answer part of Tyron's question earlier, one of the things with why people hate AFK cloaking so much is you know that they are there, you don't know if they are active, and so the only correct thing to do is treat them as though they are active.
Mm-hmm.
how do you determine if an AFK cloaker is active or not? Because I spent
you can't, and that's the
hours
point.
Yeah.
You can't, and that's the point. You do not know if they are actually at the keyboard or not, and so the only prudent thing to do is to assume that they are at the keyboard.
Can I then ask?
Now, I mean, you can use out of game sources. You can look at like when they've hot dropped things and when they've killed things and determine it. But at the basic level, that's the only prudent thing to do, is to assume that they are at the keyboard or could return any time. So you're then making the choice: do I suck it up and accept the possibility that I'm going to lose my ship?
Yeah, suck it up. That's the risk.
Shut up a moment.
Oh, sorry.
Do I suck it up and accept that I'm going to lose my ship? You know, just balance the risk versus the reward, and whether the reward of anomalies is.
Minna, you cut out?
And he may be dropping again.
The whole thing with the cloaky camping is that I think that, and I think Bronya agrees with me, is that you decided to live in a space where risk is always present, whether or not that's coming from an AFK cloaker, whether or not that's coming from somebody who's sitting in station waiting for you to go out, whether or not that's from someone just jumping into system and you just didn't notice it in time. You decided to go out into space that's tagged as free for all, and I think the fact that the threat is coming from AFK cloakers is not the issue. I think the issue is that people still have problems accepting the risk of living in a certain space. You don't hear high seckers complain about cloaky camping because
That's because we've got Concord protection.
Exactly. So they decide, I'm gonna, the risk from nullsec, lowsec, and wormholes is too much for me, so I'm gonna stay in highsec, and that's a choice. And for us living in nullsec and wormholes, we have to deal with cloaky camping or cloaky ships all the time. I mean, I spend like 23 hours a day in cloak.
So here's the thing. Here's sort of two things. One thing is cloaky camping in wormhole space and cloaky camping in nullsec are very different because the two spaces have very different threat profiles and power projection opportunities. The other thing is one of the characteristics of the other thing is one of the characteristics of nullsec space is that, or not one of the characteristics of nullsec space. One of the characteristics of risk is generally there's something you can do to counter the risk, and in
you can.
So the thing is, like, the something you can do is you have a couple of guys in a standing fleet, and this is Minna is having issues reconnecting, but we've talked about this a lot, so I know we're on the same page here. You have issues where the counter is you have like 2 or 3 guys, maybe more guys, ready to go in a ship waiting, and those are 2 or 3 people who are at their keyboards, on comms, at keyboard, in a PvP ship, ready to go, all that. And you've got another guy, your attacker, at the movies with his wife.
Yeah.
That is the...
I get what you're saying, but I think that it comes with the territory, and it ties really into that coordinating with your corporation, being active with your corporation members, and saying, hey guys, I'm gonna go out and do this. Will you guys be standing by in case something happens? If nothing happens, go do what you do, but
sure.
If I make the call, will you be there? And if the answer is no, then you have to accept the risk, or you're going to accept that you have to go do something else. I think that very much ties into how you work together with your corporation. And I get the debate. It's just very hard to agree with it. It's very hard to understand the other side of the people who say that cloaky camping is a bad thing. As a player spending a lot of time, cloaked up, I kind of accept the fact that it could happen to me at any point as well.
It's a complicated thing, right? Because you've got I'm trying to get Minna back in here, but I'm having weird issues with it. It's a complicated thing because you've got on the one hand you've got the asymmetry of effort. On the other hand, you've got on the one hand you've got the asymmetry of effort. On the other hand, you've got the issue where, like we were just talking about, how you can't use PvP ships to PvE, so you get jumped a lot more easily.
Can I put my 2 cents on it?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, I'm multitasking.
Sorry, It always it's always interesting to me to hear the AFK cloaking argument, because obviously coming from, and again this is coming from a W space kind of point of view, is we just accept the inherent risk that somebody's always watching you. It's one of those things where you don't know that they're watching you, but you just assume that they are. And it actually comes back to the whole, like, if people were quote unquote forced into doing group activities, even PvE fit, Tengus are a perfect example for that. Remote rep Tengus, because they are actually a decent fleet to fight, a PvP fleet. It also makes the, so to speak, the people who hot drop more, that they'll start thinking that, well, we could drop on them, but there's more than just one person there. We might have more of a challenge here than we think, and it takes more people to do that. It kind of obviously it kind of escalates when we're talking about super capitals dropping and stuff like that, but it kind of goes along the same lines, because when you're when you're hot dropping somebody or trying to gank somebody, you were calculating the risk. And so AFK cloaking doesn't seem to bother me that much. It just seems like one of those things that you either accept the risk, which is honestly these days it's increased exponentially, because AFK cloaking is not the only thing you have to worry about. You have to worry about interceptors in your vicinity and vicinity of like systems, because it doesn't take much. Like we do crow roams, and basically when we jump into a system, we just all scatter to different sites, and then we tackle what's ever in there, and that thing will die because we just swarm them with crows. But the argument of it's more dangerous in nullsec because you know that they're there. You know the risk is there. You have ways to combat that by doing it with multiple people, not going out solo. You have the whole, you don't want to have to. You're taking the risk of just undocking, and if you are not willing to take the risk of undocking and having an AFK cloaker in your system, that is your choice. It kind of seems invalid to me, because there's a lot of...
The issue is power projection. The issue is how fast does it escalate from one frigate to a carrier to a Titan. And if there was a little bit more of a delay, I always like the size of the Sino. First, the size of the Sino allows you to pull as much as the ship you're in, or something like that.
That's always funny to me too, because a gank is a gank no matter what ships are hot dropped on you. If it's 20 T3s or 3 super carriers, it doesn't matter, because at that point you're still going to be dead, and the result is always the same. But
at least you have a chance, and the response fleet can respond.
No.
Okay.
I could argue with you that if 20 T3s drop on your solo battle cruiser, you don't have time to respond. If you are running in remote rep Tengus, the fleet that will be dropped on you will know for sure that they can handle you or any reinforcement you could ever bring.
Yeah, but that Tango fleet's going to be outside the bounds of if there's a solo person that's a frigate that's cloaked. You're not going to sit in a system for days and days and days in a cloaked supercarrier just to tackle somebody in a industrial. So it allows a variance of response and a variance of what you're going to shuffle forward in your deck and show your card of what you're willing to put in the system, what you're willing to jump in.
Well, that's also kind of not true, because when we're talking about somebody ganking your battle cruisers or your T3 or your Tengus in a site, you don't know what's coming in.
You don't know what's coming in.
You didn't scout ahead of time. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter what gets dropped on you. If they have the numbers to kill you, you will die one way or the other, no matter what reinforcements you will bring. It's one of those things where Sinos and hot dropping doesn't make a valid argument, at least in my head, for
covert Sinos are one thing. I'll take
not even covert Sinos. I'm not talking about covert Sinos. I'm giving you examples which I know I've done, which is wormhole ganking, where you jump into a system and you warp to a site with your 20 T3s. They didn't see you coming at all. Not because you didn't put in the effort, because you didn't put your
I've lived in wormhole space too. I enjoy that part of wormhole space, but if you're going to get nullsecers, risk-adverse nullsecers to go and stay out of system, if there's somebody cloaked, you need to be able to gauge your response.
So
you always have to gauge your response.
Hang on. I'm just going to bust in here to say that we're now going over a very old argument, and not only that, but we're going over a very old argument, and not only that, but it is 5:30 p.m. on this coast, which means it is almost time for me to go to dinner, and it's our typical hour and a half.
Yeah, the AFK cloaking argument, I mean, I've heard it so many times, and it's been beaten to death so many times.
I'll argue it to death.
Can I chip in one more?
Please don't. Can we move on, please?
No,
Pretty please.
No. there are many threads on the forums in which to have this argument. It's one of the old chestnuts, similar
Something
to...
has to change, right? That's the only argument I'm trying to say.
Which is the better text editor, Vim or Emacs? Discuss. It'll be a more productive discussion. Anyways, but it is 5:30, so I'm wrapping this call up. We'll be back again 2 weeks from now with the Kronos release, and whatever hilarious bugs come out of that. I fully expect to see pauses become Skynet. Have fun getting shot.
CCP's already done that one. The next major bug are stationing gate guns going Skynet and shooting everybody.
I don't use pauses anymore, so have fun.
Well,
the current bug we're seeing is no response, so they're letting the players give the response. And then
I don't know. I, for one, welcome our new Skynet overlords.
Anyways.
Cordokin for everybody!
Yeah. Same bet time, same bet place, later.
Actually, if anybody wants to stay and argue with me, I'm more than...
Alright, I'm stopping this